So anyway, I did the maths, and I worked in radio for 18 years. And I've worked in Spin and in News Talk and in Phantom, which became TXFM. And since October 2016, I've been the assistant program director at Today FM. Danny O'Reilly is from the Coronas. Do we have any Coronas fans? Come on. They're not performing, sorry. They're not performing. So we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of Irish radio when it comes to promoting Irish bands and Danny's own experience of that. But first, Danny, you've got some tour dates coming up. You're in the UK next week, and then you're live at the Marquee in Cork, then the Three Arena, that little venue in Dublin.
Might as well get the plugs out of the way now.
Some tickets are still available.
Yeah.
You can win a pair by texting. No, you can't. Then you're doing Lollapalooza and a massive US tour in the autumn.
Yeah, the last couple of years we've done a lot more in America, and it's going really well. And sort of ironically, because 3 years ago we had a major label that sort of didn't push us.
This was Island Records.
Yeah, Island, one of the biggest labels in the world.
You had an agreement for 5 albums, but you just got one, and then it just kind of fell apart.
We were another statistic. But like since we've done our own thing now, we've toured more outside Ireland than we ever have, and it's cool to be in control of your own sort of destiny in that sense. Yeah. But I mean, for us, the main reason that I'm here really is because there wouldn't be a Coronas if it wasn't for the radio support we got from the very, very early stages, like, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, you know, this is a huge the fact that you're touring the States, not for the first time, and you're touring with a festival the size and stature of Lollapalooza really is a testament to your success. And it all began, you know, back. I remember when I was on Spin, and the song San Diego song came out. And what you said before about San Diego song, you said when it came out,
what did I say?
It just got a crazy amount of radio play, and it propelled us onto another level where we could sell out gigs. So the importance of radio play, I mean, I always think of radio as the original music sharing platform. You have Spotify now, and you've got YouTube and Deezer, and peer-to-peer music sharing that way. But I always think that radio is the original music sharing platform because that's where people go to hear new music, and then they tell other people, and radio presenters want to share their favorite music as well. So it's not just about radio play, it's the significance of radio. Tell us about when that kicked in around the time of San Diego.
It was funny for us because we were sort of a new band, and we had a little bit of a following around colleges, and we were getting little bits of spot plays here and there for our first couple of singles just before San Diego song came out. And we'd sort of, San Diego song came out, and it went to number 27 in the charts. It got a couple of spot plays, and then it dropped out of the charts and it was gone. And we were like, oh, well, that was all right. And then one Dublin station got behind it, and F104 a playlist to this when no one else was playing it, like, and they said, we like this, and they really got behind it. And within, I'd say, 2 months of that, went to all the other regionals, then the nationals, and then it was like the last song of the night in Copperface Jacks, like. And it was just, for us, it was just an amazing, it just showed us the importance of radio. And from then, we've always been sure to do whatever we're asked to do. I just met Dermot Whelan there. I said the last time I was in the Mansion House, we had a big launch of our last album here with Dermot and Dave. And it was great, like, and those sort of things. Although he never told me about that Tesco offer he was offered. Like, it sounded like we could have got a lot of money for that.
He was contractually he couldn't.
He kept that to himself. But so I suppose for us that showed us the power of how much airplay really makes us, and that just pushed us on. As I said there, like, that gave us a platform. All of a sudden, people were coming to see our gigs and
singing the words back to you.
And I suppose we could gig enough to make a living out of it. And then we found once we got the foot in the door at the first single, everyone was more open to hearing more stuff, and for us it was really, you know, the difference, I think, to start us on our path. You know,
what a lot of people probably want to know from hearing that is, do you have a gold card for Copperface Jacks?
Yeah, dude.
You do.
I haven't been there in a long time.
Right.
Didn't we have a gold card as opposed to just the bouncers recognise me? Go on.
Go on out of that.
Yeah.
Radio play is important, and there are most or nearly every radio station has one program, at least one program that's dedicated to Irish music only, which is really important. Getting onto the main daytime playlist is significant.
Yeah.
Other stations followed suit after FM 104.
It's funny, even when I remember when yourself and Keith were on Spin, and I remember Chris Doyle coming into us and saying, "We're sorry we didn't get on San Diego earlier, but like we'll be on the new one now." And they, as you say, they all started following suit, like, you know.
Yeah.
And it's funny the way that can happen as well. And people see a reaction to one station really getting behind a band. I mean, and it's happened now. There's new generations of new bands coming through, and like to picture this are getting so much support, and it's making all the difference, you know. And
it can often be a case of who blinks first, because, you know, a lot of radio stations will have a fairly clearly defined music policy, but there'll be bands or certainly songs that will fit most of them.
Yeah.
But they'll watch and wait and see, and, you know, it is, I suppose, a credit to any radio station like 104 or Today FM that would, you know, take a punt on a song.
Absolutely, and I think now there's a lot more stations doing it, and they're seeing that it works, and that it, you know, it's that connection with the Irish audience and the Irish listeners. And when we started, it seemed to be, I think it was a little bit more of a difficult door to knock down. There was sort of Bell X1 might have been getting a bit of play. There was Republic of Loose, and, you know, there was probably
Blizzards,
Director, De Laurentiis,
yeah,
and the Thrills maybe, and only a couple that were really sustaining it and continuing to release singles and continuing to get played, like, you know.
At least you weren't saddled with the thing that was so much in the 80s and 90s, which was the next U2.
Yeah, well,
we seemed to shake that off, you know, at the turn of after the millennium, because that really was bands like, when you look at bands like, say, the era of Something Happens and Emotional Fish, The Stunning and all that, it was always like the next U2.
I know, but it's funny, even now sometimes we go to America and they'll compare us to U2 like we're probably the same band and we probably know each other. Like,
they're old enough to be your grandfather,
exactly.
Really.
But,
and they could be.
But that's just, I mean, that just comes with it, I think, when the two are so big.
Early radio, let's talk about your early radio interviews and performances, because it must be very different in terms of an experience when you go and perform in a studio, recording studio, or on stage, and then you come into a radio studio and you have a presenter. It's a busy environment, they have things to do. You might do a session for them, it could be live, it could be done in advance. What was it like going around? I don't use the term playing the game, but you know, I think you openly admit that you have to facilitate requests because it gets your name out there.
Definitely, and I think, as I said, we sort of learnt that earlier on, how important it was to us. So I remember in the early days, like even before San Diego Song came out, we would be going around playing college radios. I remember going down to UCC one morning, playing, like, there's probably about 9 listeners, like, you wouldn't even know, like, but, you know, we were learning.
No, that was on Spin with me and Keith.
Yeah,
and it was 10.
You 10 listeners, yeah. My mum was listening as well.
She was.
But you sort of, but that was us learning our trade and how to get comfortable, because you have a small segment to sort of sell yourself, as well as whatever live acoustic performance you're doing, if you are doing one, but sometimes you're just on having a chat about your new album or whatever, and you have to sort of be engaging, you have to be into it, and like, I know from when I did the show with you and Today FM, when you have someone comes in, the first guest we had on our show was Amy Huberman, and she was just amazing, like, and I just said, "So how you doing, Amy?" And she's just away, and she's so engaging and just like charismatic, and she can just carry the show. But then we'd have another guest, I won't mention any names, where it's just like, "How you doing?" They're like, "Fine," and it's just like, "Oh wow, okay."
One word answers, very monosyllabic
and it can be
response.
tough, and I know there's some bands who aren't comfortable doing it.
And why do you think that is? I mean, like, some bands, you know, and you can hear it, or if you've interviewed them, it just is very hard to get anything from them, and they seem disengaged. And is it an element that they don't feel they're sullied by going on mainstream radio?
I don't know. Like, to me, that would never have even crossed our mind. So I can't really relate to even a sense of having that thought. Like, no matter what the radio station is or whatever, you know, it would never be a thing where, like, oh, you know, and so that. But I actually think it's more that some people just aren't comfortable.
Okay.
And even though they're like in front of whatever 3,000 people singing every weekend and they're comfortable as a band on stage. But when it comes to being behind the microphone and talking about the music, out of shyness and out of just being uncomfortable, they end up just going, we're too cool for this, and sort of, whatever.
They're actually, it's maybe a bit of social anxiety.
It's a bit more like that. Yeah,
even though they're performers.
Yeah.
Radio stations often vie for kind of ownership or proprietorship of Irish music, and it can be a source of pride for the radio station. From a band's perspective, is that warmly met, or does it suit the ambition, or is it sometimes kind of create awkwardness?
If a radio station is saying
we're first for Irish music, we champion Irish music, and ultimately it's going to benefit Irish bands, but who do you prefer, Today FM or 2FM? Let's just get down to who looks after you better. Come on.
Well, it's funny, like, as you know, from different stations and everyone changing stations, sometimes you meet a DJ that you think how's things going and whatever. No, I'm not there anymore. Like, I was talking to Casey earlier on, like, Casey was Red, Today FM, now he's 96, and that's just the industry it's in. But so you sort of make the relationships with people, and no, there are stations that have been really, to be honest, we've been blessed over the years. We've had support all throughout the years from every band, but I think it is give and take as well, and asked to do things like this, so I said, yeah, of course I'll do it, like, and when a station gets on, we're doing this competition, will you come in and do this, and sometimes you push the boundaries a little bit, you do things that a little bit awkward.
Tell us a couple of awkward stories, Danny.
Well, it's funny,
and we'll all sit back and laugh.
Dermot was talking about the barbecue sessions he did, and we had one with 2FM where we went to someone's back garden, like, and did a gig for them, and like, I think it worked on air, but like being there, it was like, so we're in your back garden, like, and they had the grannies down and the neighbors were in, like, and it was just a bit like, right, okay. But it's just about when it's awkward like that, approaching it in the right mindset and just going, all right, lads, let's not take ourselves too seriously here. Get the guitars out. We don't need to bring a massive PA and barriers. Like, we'll do a couple of acoustic songs. Everyone will go home happy. We'll take a few selfies. And sometimes it is a case of just dealing with it the best way, and not, as I say, taking yourself too seriously and if you're trying to get the impression where you're going, we need to bring our sound engineer in to make sure that the broadcast is perfect, and who's listening to the live broadcast, we need someone in the van, and sometimes all these sort of things can end up being detrimental to you, and you need to just be there,
loosen up a bit,
and just be yourselves and interact with the listeners and with the DJs and with the people in the radio, and that is more beneficial to bands in the long run than putting your foot down and going, we need 4 engineers in here to make sure this sounds perfect. Who's looking after that, and all this.
You remind me of when I was a producer on News Talk. I produced the Tom Dunn Show, and unfortunately we had to go and do the ploughing every year. And I don't know if anyone here has ever worked on a radio show at the ploughing, but it's just an absolute nightmare. It's the worst thing in the world ever. I'm sure I've seen Vietnam movies. That was easier to manage than doing a radio program at the ploughing. So all of Ireland's population is there except for city centre Dublin, and when you put on a show, you try and provide as much entertainment as you can, and you can draw from whoever's going to be there anyway. So that suits current affairs programming, because there's always a few ministers mooching about looking for votes and the odd angry farmer, but you can't, there won't be bands floating around or whatever. So weeks in advance you'd book bands to come to the ploughing, and one year we booked Fred. They're a Cork band, really they're not touring or operating anymore or whatever, but lovely guys, really good music. And the traffic around the ploughing is just honestly, it's the worst. It's just never seems to be managed properly. So that day we had Fred, and I think we had Luca Bloom, and the show was on from 9 to 12. Everyone got there, I think, at 7 or 8 a.m. Luca Bloom abandoned his car, took a bicycle out of his boot, and got to us with about 5 minutes to spare. The show was over at midday. Fred got to us finally at the News Talk trailer at 11:55, and they had their instruments and everything, and they literally just said hello and goodbye to Tom and couldn't perform their song. But nonetheless, they were really chirpy about it. They didn't seem to mind.
They probably got more promo off that. Like Tom was all show going, Fred are on their way, they're on their way, they're on their way. It's better than showing up at 11 and doing your song. And, like, you know what I mean?
I think there
sometimes that, again, that's one of the beauties of radio, I think. It's just things like that, things can go wrong. Like, and
things can go wrong, and you have to kind of embrace that side of it. They got a Free Farmer's Journal out of it anyways, and a high-vis vest, and a walking stick. So it's pretty all right, you know. You've done a bit of radio presenting yourself. So how easy or difficult was that when it's on the other side?
Well, it's funny, like, as you know from my interviews that we did, like when I was promoting the Coronas, I've never had a problem talking, and I love the sound of my own voice, really, but it was different. It was much harder than I thought it was going to be. I think I was naive.
Was it?
Even though I wasn't going in going, this is going to be easy, it'll be no bother, like, you know, I've been on the other side of the mic, it'll be fine. Like, I was expecting it to be difficult, but it was much more difficult than I thought. And having you there made a big difference, obviously, as my esteemed producer.
Yes, the series was called A Different Side, and it was the summer of 2016 on Today FM. It's still online, you can listen back, and I had the pleasure of producing it.
I'm proud of it, and I did really enjoy it, and I'd like to do more of it down the road, I think, you know, when the timing's right, like, you know, but...
That's a come and get me plea to any station listening.
Exactly, so give me my own show. But it was really, really good fun. But it was interesting to see it from that side of things. And as I say, dealing with, especially interviewing people and seeing the difference that brought out myself as a presenter. When you have a really good guest, it's much easier.
Yeah.
It's easier to be a better presenter when you have a good guest, and all of a sudden you start bantering off them, and it's just like, you know. And then when it's someone who's not giving you as much, that's when I start going, okay, my work is cut out for me here, like, you know.
Yeah.
And
did you hear the Ian Dempsey interview recently with Damon Albarn? It was about 2 weeks ago, and Damon Albarn agreed to come on to promote the Gorillaz gig at Malahide Castle, and Ian said, "Oh, Damon, how are you?" And it was live on the phone at 7:30. "Oh, I haven't been to bed, Ian."
Oh my God.
And you have to listen back to it. It was one of those things that it was so bad it was good. Mm-hmm. He was clearly still tired and emotional, but at that point you just go, well, to hell with it, you know. It's
no better man than Ian to just...
Just a couple of more things. What kind of radio appeals to you? I presume you listened to the radio growing up.
I do. I still listen to radio all the time, like in the car especially, but even at home. I have a shower radio. I'm one of the few people who has a radio in the shower. Yeah. And it's great. No, I suppose I like music radio, but I do like talk. I think as I'm getting a little bit older, I listen to a bit more news talk, especially the sport podcasts. I'm obsessed with sports, so I like Off the Ball, and I listen to Second Captains on podcasts as well. And I mean,
do you think podcasts are complementary or in competition with radio? Because there's so many podcasts that have nothing to do with radio.
I don't know. I suppose there probably are a competition, but especially now, you know, you can literally just press play when you're in the car and Bluetooth. You can press play on your phone and it goes straight into your car as well. But it never quite sounds the same or something. And there is, I think the guys were talking about earlier on, that immediacy. You know, if you don't listen to the podcast of that night, so Second Captains have one free podcast on a Monday, but if I don't listen to that on Tuesday morning, it's already out of date on Wednesday, like, especially with the World Cup going on, like, you know. So if I miss it on Tuesday morning, or I'm not out on Tuesday night or whatever, I'm just like, I'll get it next week. Whereas, you know, every afternoon I can throw on News Talk and see what the lads are saying about the World Cup, like. You know?
And in terms of music radio, people obviously have access to radio stations all around the world through various different apps and internet radios. Yeah. But do you think we need more diversity in this country in our own indigenous output in terms of music radio? And, you know, does it raise the question, how can we make it happen?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, I would never want to be up here going, oh, there's too much dance music being played, or it's too poppy or whatever, you know. I mean, that's not really for me to say, but, like, I do miss TXFM or, you know, and Phantom before, and it was always good to just, you know, flick over to CX and in the afternoon you'd hear, you know, cool Modest Mouse or something, like, when you're driving around, which is driving music should be played in the afternoon, like, you know, it's not late night, you know.
Jazz.
Yeah, exactly.
Jazz, folk, fusion.
So yeah, I mean, I'm probably not the best man to talk to about that stuff, but definitely, I mean, I know it's a saturated market and there's so many stations, but that because the love is there for it, like, you know, and people want to, and you talk about the amount of choice with stations outside Ireland, but that would never appeal to me. Like I'd never. And
Really?
I never listened to Radio 1. I never listened to. Maybe it's just because there's no chance of the Coronas being heard on it.
Oh my gosh, right.
But,
so you're that vain.
I have
okay.
that thing where...
That's your headline.
If I'm in the car with someone else and the Coronas come on, I'm like, oh, I'll change it. But if I'm by myself, I'm fucking windows down, singing every
You're like,
word.
I'll change it. Oh no, the radio's broken. I can't fix it.
But,
I think that's interesting that you wouldn't access BBC
No,
radio.
I think it's sort of like the immediacy. It's also the sort of local vibe of it, and it's your own people, and you know, it's, I don't know. I don't think it's particularly, it comes from a nationalistic sort of perspective.
Are you a member of the IRA?
No, but it's just like you're people talking about the sun today in the radio, everyone giving out about it and whatever, and it's just like, yeah, that's the conversations that I'm having with people.
Yeah.
So you know, might as well just tune in and see who's giving out about it now. Like, you know, it's too hot, whatever.
I think like within schedules you'll always find lots of music diversity, but I suppose it does bring a bigger question about funding of radio stations, license fee funding, possibly apportioning that out and seeing if more niche music stations can be sustained and
Absolutely,
can be held,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people would like. Well, who did you listen to growing up? You dodged that question.
Stations wise?
Yeah, just anyone, you know, when you were a kid.
I always listened to Today FM, I have to say. I mean, not so, when I was in college, probably FM104 as well. But I sort of felt like I grew up a bit with Today FM.
I used to listen to Jerry Ryan when I was home from school. I have really vivid memories of listening and really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was younger, I thought like 2FM was a little bit, like I know that the demographics sort of changed
shifted,
and adjust and they shifted and whatever, but when I was younger I always thought like, you know, that talk radio on the afternoon on 2FM, which was the biggest, you know, was just a little bit too old for me, and you know, when Today FM arrived in, the buzz of the new, you know, slightly alternative, and you know, it sort of got me on board early, and yeah, I mean, I loved Ray Darcy, you know. Even more recently, like I really liked Anton. I thought he was great in radio, and Neil Delamere, and so I don't know. I suppose that's my bias, but I mean I don't. I'm not really. I just flick, like, you know, and I'll flick, and it's not. I don't really have a huge loyalty to one station.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but
you like to put yourself about, I heard.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, typical. Yeah. We used to, Larry Gogan's Top 30 on a Sunday was essential listening, because it was the only way you'd access the charts. This is back when everything was black and white, and you would record it onto a tape and try and block out the ads or the links,
and the back,
which is such as someone who did presenting, it is such a kick in the face to have some snotty-nosed brat edit out your brilliantly prepared links.
Yeah, and if you back announces it or whatever.
Exactly.
Ruined the outro.
But that was a very long time ago. Well, it's 5:00, Lisa, so I think we're going to wrap up. Are we going to have some questions? Unless there's someone wants to find out some private details about Danny. No, I guess not. We've one question at the back. So there's a gentleman at the back with a question. We'll take one anyway. Sure, we might as well. We're here now anyway. Do you know? We might as well take one.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose we've always been blessed with the amount of play we've got, so it's probably easy for me to say, they're grand, there's a load of Irish bands getting play, but I suppose if you're coming, but I mean, I look at it from maybe my sister's perspective as well, and Roisin, my sister, is a new artist, and she's at that stage now where she's trying to break through and trying to get that support that she got, and in fairness, you know, I think there is a different perspective now, and there is a lot more music being played. I mean, if you look at the last year even, you know, the likes of Academic, Picture This, you know, there's Gavin James, there's just, the list is endless, Hudson Taylor, there is a lot of bands getting play, like, and there's always going to be bands that people love that aren't getting play, and you know, I understand it from both perspectives. It's hard for the radio stations to take a punt on a new band that they just like what happened to us. But I think in general it's a really healthy time. It was sort of a core of bands that paved the way, I think, as well. If looking the last few years, even before that, Codeline, Walking on Cars, Hosier, who exploded not just in Ireland, but outside Ireland as well. And that sort of made it, I think, a few stations go, all right, well, you know, we can get on these bands early and not just wait until Hosier's on Oprah before we start playing, or Ellen or whatever it was, before we start really supporting them, you know. So I think there's more stations like yourselves, and the open mic actually in 104 was the first one that played us even before the Strawberry Alarm Clock. That week that Colin and Jim went to 2FM was the only reason we got on Strawberry Alarm Clock, because we were there.
Really?
We were the only band around because we had been on the open mic on the Sunday before, and that was our first thing, and that's when 104 got behind the San Diego song. So that was really because we went in there and we did them a favor, and they were like, "Oh, we love the song," and that was it. But yeah, I have to say, I mean, I put on the radio now, and I would even on the nationals, I think there's a lot of Irish getting played.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
I mean, again, I'm probably not the right person to say, oh yeah, but they're the bands who are already big. Maybe there's a load of new acts that I'm not quite aware of.
I think and the short answer is yes. I do think Irish bands get enough oxygen, but I think given the commercial imperatives of radio stations in the independent sector, it is considered a risk to take a chance on not certain bands, but genres or styles of music that, yes, may be really, really good and have some appeal. But unfortunately, because of the commercial imperatives, radio stations are trying to get as many listeners, trying to get appeal to as broad a taste as they can. And consequently, there are Irish bands that will be frustrated that they don't get heard on radio. It's not necessarily a reflection on the music that they make. It's a reflection on what JNLR and research and music testing tells the radio station. So it's challenging for Irish bands, but I think I really do think at the moment it's
I
quite
think as well
healthy.
It's a lot about luck as well. I mean, as I said, we released San Diego song and came out and it sort of disappeared, and then just when you got a certain amount of play, it sort of connected with a whole bunch of students like that. All of a sudden we're really connecting with it and you know, requesting it and stuff like that, and it sort of became hard to ignore. And I think a band like Picture This probably had the similar thing in the last couple of years, where they had a great tune and Take My Hand just really connected with people, and it, you know, people couldn't ignore it, and it took off, like, you know.
Yeah.
And I think there's, as Joe says, there's an amazing amount of bands out there, and it's just, you know, if you get that bit of luck at the right time, it makes all the difference. Like, you just have to be ready to work if it does come. That's what we think. Anyway.
Yeah. Does that answer, Jason? Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Or will we call it a day and go outside and
enjoy
have
the
ice cream?
sun?
Okay, well, look, thanks very much for listening to myself and Danny. Danny, thanks very much for
bud.
coming along, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.